Good morning, DuJuan. It's a pleasure to.
Jim Winston, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. It's happy for us to do this podcast together. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I'm eager for our audience to get to know you. So before we get into the meat of the conversation, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised. Let's start there.
So I am a Midwestern boy, born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. Was born in 1967 and went to college in Indianapolis, went to Butler University. So yeah, that's where I'm from, and I'm a proud Hoosier.
All right, excellent, excellent. So you got a distinguished career in broadcasting. Where and how did it all begin? Start there.
So I've been in TV since 1989, okay? And it was my first real job that I got right out of college. I took a job selling copiers and fax machines for about 6 months as soon as I graduated from Butler. Then soon thereafter, I got hired by Channel 4, WTTV, which was an independent television station in Indianapolis that sold. We had the rights to IU basketball, Purdue basketball, Big Ten basketball. It was a different world back then where you didn't have regional sports channels. So I was fortunate to break my tooth on a unique television station. Started off as a salesperson in 1989. Then I worked my way up to director of sports marketing. Then I got the television gypsy bug and start moving around the country, chasing it, trying to grow in my career, trying to reach what I thought was the pinnacle of television station management, and that was to be a general manager. So I started moving around the country, and I worked for a few different companies, then I got into ownership in 2007. So I know I'm jumping around, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, Jimmy, but that's how I got into TV, and that's where I've been all of my professional career is in broadcast TV.
All right, DuJuan, let's step back a little bit. And you're working in broadcasting. You got the desire to move up in management, hoping to become a general manager. And at some point in time, the ownership bug grabs you. When did you first start thinking about becoming a station owner?
So that's a good question, Jimmy. That's a very interesting question, and I get asked that an awful lot. Okay, when I first got started, and I'm doing this conversation as a more of a tutorial, and I think that's your goal here is to give people a glimpse of what I did and what drove me to ownership. So I'll just give you the whole full story.
Good.
When I start thinking about ownership, okay, I was 23 years old, and I didn't know what an entrepreneurial bug meant at the time. I was very impressed by a young owner by the name of Barry Baker, okay? He had purchased WTTV Channel 4, the station that I worked at, and he was a young guy, and he had just bought, I want to say, 6 or 7 television stations. When he came to Indianapolis to do his takeover meeting, if you will, he did a meeting in the studio, and he was talking to the salespeople specifically. And I was a sales guy. And the language that he used, it was, hey, I'm looking for athletes in my sales department that want to make a lot of jack. And that was the language that he used that really, really inspired me instantly, because he was an owner and he was using language that was near and dear to my heart. Okay, so he was talking to me. So I got really, really enamored with this guy's success. And from that point on, I said to myself, I want to be like that guy. Okay? Not knowing what an entrepreneurial bug was, but I said at that point, I want to be like that guy. When I said I wanted to be like that guy, I started telling people, man, that guy was inspirational to me. He inspired me. I want to be like him. I want to own television stations one day. Okay? So that was really the genesis, Jim, of me wanting to get into TV as an owner.
Okay, well, before we continue your story, whatever became, what's Bobby Baker was his name?
Barry, Barry, Baker, Baker.
And whatever became of Barry Baker?
So Barry Baker became one of the most renowned owners in America. He ended up purchasing, I want to say, 25 to 30 TV stations, and he was part of one of the biggest mega mergers of our lifetime when he combined with Sinclair Broadcasting. So in other words, Sinclair Broadcasting bought Barry Baker out, and I think to the tune of over $1 billion, okay? And that was a mega merger back in the early 2000s. I think it was early 2000s or late 1990s.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, it sounds like you got inspired from a really good inspirational person. So
I really did.
I'm glad to hear that part of the story. I hadn't heard that story before. All right. So you get the bug, and it's in the back of your mind as you're moving around the country from one station to another. And eventually it goes from being an idea to something you're acting on. Tell me about when you actually started acting on buying your first stations.
Yeah, that's a really good question too, Jimmy. So for me, I had about 14 years of director of sales experience in market sizes 24, 105, you name it, I covered the gamut, 10. So I had paid my dues, and I moved around the country a lot. I had paid my dues, and I was in the heir apparent seat to becoming a general manager, okay? And I've been a DOS for 14 years. When I start interviewing for general managers' jobs, I got the answer that I didn't want to hear. And it was always a no. It was always, no, you're not ready to be a general manager. No, you're not. No here, no here, no here. I got tired of hearing no. I knew that I had skills to run a television station. I saw people less skilled, less qualified than I was getting general managers' jobs, okay, in very good markets, okay? That frustrated me. No matter who I worked for, no matter what amount of time I had put into or dedicated to a company, I always got the no, okay? Come July 2007, I get another no, okay? And I'm saying to myself, this is going to be my last no. I'm going to do something about it myself. So I, in September of 2007, enrolled in the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, Broadcast Leadership Training Program. That is a 10-month executive style training program that teaches tenured, qualified, seasoned television and radio people how to buy assets, how to buy radio and television stations. I enrolled in that class in September of 2007 and ended up finding my first group of stations in December of 2007 while I was still a participant in the class. So after I got so many no's, Jim, on reaching what I thought was the pinnacle of television station management, I had to take matters into my own hands and found that class, and that taught me an awful lot on what I didn't know, okay, it taught me what I didn't know or I couldn't be taught while running a television station. So there you have it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's an excellent endorsement for the NAB program. And what I want to do, though, is take the pieces of that. Once you decided, I'm in the program, I'm learning, next step, you've got to put together a team, I suspect. You need engineers, accountants, financial advisors, funding sources. Tell me about that process. How did you put your team together, and who was it? What professional skills did you put together in your team?
So that's a very good question. Another good question. So, and again, I'm going to give a lot of credit to my know-how, my initial know-how, to the Broadcast Leadership Training Program, because that's where I learned these initial moves. Okay. So in that class, I was advised to put together a team of attorneys, a confidants, a financial backer, okay, and brokers, okay. I put together that team just by word of mouth and networking within the Broadcast Leadership Training Program, okay. That class, there are lots of different speakers, and teachers and faculty members that want to help, that want to give back to diverse people on buying public broadcast stations, okay? FCC regulated broadcast stations. So I got a good team of advisors together that, again, consisted of faculty members from the Broadcast Leadership Training Program and word of mouth on people that wanted to invest in broadcasting. Yeah, I had to give it, and people, brokers I think are brilliant people, okay? Because in brokers can help aspiring purchasers of radio and television stations, because they only get paid when they put a buyer and a seller together. That's the only time they get compensated. So I put together a broker because I was a seller. I mean, I was a buyer, okay? And if people want to, if these brokers have stations that they're trying to sell, so they are the conduit between closing a deal, okay? So that's why I had to put a broker in the deal, because they were incentivized to try to help me get a deal done, because brokers are selling television stations. And more than likely, the television stations and radio stations that we want to buy, entry-level buyers want to buy, they're not going to be pretty television stations, okay? They're not going to be the number ones or number twos or number threes in the market. They're going to be more than likely the ugliest stations in the market. And guess who gets those to sell? The brokers, because they're difficult to sell, okay? So that's why I used a broker, and it worked out to my advantage by using a broker.
Okay, now I've heard that when you approach a broker, brokers are always concerned about people wasting their time and kicking tires when they can't afford to buy the car. So, when you approached your broker, what did he or she do to make sure you would be qualified to make a purchase?
Very good question. So for me, when I reached out to a broker, I put together a spec sheet of criteria of what type of television station I was looking to purchase. And it had 15 different criteria. I sent it to every broker in America. One broker called me back and said, I got the stations you're looking for. They've been on the market for 10 years and nobody wants them. They were Fox affiliates in San Angelo and Abilene. Before he went down that road with me, he wanted to ask me, where are you getting your money? Who's going to help you fund this thing? Okay? I had to tell him. I had to tell him that I had my personal finances in the deal. I had found an angel investor, okay? And we had a relationship with a big money fund that was willing to help us purchase this. Once I told him that, that was all he needed, okay? And my reputation had already preceded me because I had been in the television business for over 25 years, over 20 years, put it that way. It was 20 years at the time, over 20 years. So I had a reputation in the business of being very, very good at what I was doing. So you're right, Jimmy. A broker will first ask you, where are you getting your money? And brokers I believe, are trustworthy people. Once you tell them where you are getting your money and it sounds like it's a credible place, they will go to work for you and they will try to put you and a seller together. And whatever happens after that is really up to you and the seller.
Okay, so peeling back again, angel investor. Everybody, the term is heard all the time. People have no idea how to find an angel investor. How did you find an angel investor?
So I found an angel investor by networking. Okay, I got lucky, and a gentleman that's in the television business, okay, had an offer from another guy to give this other buyer of television stations money to start buying television stations. This buyer didn't want to buy television stations, so this buyer gave this angel investor my name, okay? So it was a word of mouth kind of deal. Again, it was all networking and talking to enough people to get your word out that you are qualified, you are ready, you are actively seeking properties, okay? That's one way to do it, okay? That's one way to do it. And this was a high net worth individual that I got introduced to, okay? Other ways that you can find angel investors are friends and family, okay? You can accumulate dollars, okay, from friends and family, and that could be your angel investing, okay? If you know high net worth individuals that want part ownership of a company, that's another way to go to it. Athletes are a great place to go to. Entertainers are a great place to go to. Business people that you've sold. If you worked at television stations or radio stations, you've worked with a lot of business owners that had a lot of respect for you when you were selling them ad space. You can go to those business owners and ask for a seed investment, if you will. So angel investing, I think, for the entry-level purchase is a very valiant and a respectable way to get in the ownership game.
You had an investment fund bringing in the big money. How did you find them?
So my angel investor had a relationship with another fund. This is a great story, Jimmy, because keep in mind, when I bought television stations, I bought them in 2007, and I was supposed to close in 2008, and I think the world remembers what happened in 2008. So once I agreed and signed my documents to purchase the television station, I signed it at the end of 2007 while the FCC was approving the transaction. Lo and behold, the bottom of the financial world, boom, drops out, okay? The bottom of the financial world drops out, and all of the financing in America, no matter what fund you were working with, no matter what bank you went to, funding dried up. Okay, so I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because I had agreed to purchase these television stations, and something out of my control happened, and it affected me and it affected everybody. Okay, so what we didn't use any fund money. Okay, because the fund money said, nope, we're not loaning any money. What I had to do, okay, and this opens up my eyes to another way to finance for entry-level purchasers, I had to go back to the seller. I had to go back to the seller and say, Mr. Seller, Mr. Schindler was his name, Mr. Schindler, as you know, we're in a recession and there's no money to be had. I would love for you to give me seller financing. I would love for you to hold the paper for my transaction, and I will pay you X amount of interest until I can find money to take you out, or the credit markets reopen up. It took me about 2 weeks to convince this owner to give me seller financing, but he agreed to do it and the reason he agreed to do it is because what I was paying him in interest was more than he was making running the television stations. So it was a win-win situation for both of us. Okay? So while my seller is holding financing paper and allowing me to own and operate this television station, I'm running my television station while at the same time searching for financing on my own to try to take my seller out. Okay? I had to take my seller out because I was paying a really good interest rate that I didn't want to pay anymore. Okay? So I'm going to stop there, Jimmy, because you'll have another question. But I can go on and on this because this is a big, long, run-on story, as you know.
Well, but it's important because, and what we really need to do is to educate people about the twists and turns that can come into play in the very first deal. That first deal is the hardest, and I'm loving the fact that you're showing these twists and turns. You hit the 2008 recession, which blew up a whole lot of deals. You figured out a way to get your deal done in spite of that. So I think giving potential buyers a real world view of the twists and turns and how you deal with those twists and turns is critical here. So I appreciate the detail you're giving us. I think the detail is the critical part for folks hearing your story.
Thank you, Jim. That's great. So you hit the nail on the head. When you become an entrepreneur, your life is full of adversity. Okay, nothing goes as planned when you become an entrepreneur. And when you become an entrepreneur, the buck starts and stops with you. Okay? So in adversity, if you throw the towel in, okay, your company throws the towel in. Okay? So I don't have throw the towel in my nature at all. So this is part of, if you're out there thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, what I'm telling you is this is these stories are par for the course. I got thousands of these stories, okay, that I can tell you where things didn't go as planned, but when you persevere and you try to look for a solution, okay, things seem to work out.
Okay, so we've got you now. So you've gotten the seller to agree to seller paper. That takes the deal to a closing. You get closed. All right. You've told us the ins and outs of the problems that can develop before you close. Now, you've closed. You're a station owner. I want two questions together. What was the biggest surprise that you found as a station owner, and what was the biggest problem you found as a new station owner?
So here's what I'll tell you. When you do due diligence, the due diligence is the preparation and the studying of every facet of the TV or radio station that you're about to buy. When you do that on the onset and you do it properly, there should be very, very, very few surprises. Okay? So, not being arrogant here, but when I did my due diligence on the initial onset, I knew from running television stations, operating television stations, where my pitfalls and opportunities might be. Knock on wood, I was blessed that I did the proper due diligence and I didn't have any gotchas from an operational standpoint. What you are challenged with, no matter what company, no matter what station you buy, is the people end. Okay? Managing and leading people. Okay? That will always be an entrepreneur's number one challenge, if you will, because you don't know what you are getting from a people standpoint when you buy it. Okay? So you don't know where talent levels are compared to your talent levels. So there's a lot of people production issues that you have to ferret through to make your operation a well-oiled machine, okay? The biggest thing that I learned when I first owned my television stations in San Angelo and Abilene was that they're not like people in other parts of the country. Let me rephrase that. What I've learned is people operate and think differently in different parts of the country, okay? People in San Angelo and Abilene didn't think like people in Houston, which was my last stop before I became an owner, okay? You may say to yourself, oh, that's a given. That is not a given when you are an owner of television stations, because my level of expertise in running television stations, if you can see my hand, was up here, okay? And folks in smaller markets, and in my case, market number 203 for San Angelo and market 167, their acumen and their level of expertise compared to mine was down here, okay? That's not a knock. That's just a different level of experience, okay, that I had that they didn't have. What I knew was that for me to win in San Angelo and Abilene, I could not keep my level up here while operating with my people down here. What I learned at the snap of the finger was that these people running and helping me achieve a win in San Angelo and Abilene, if I was going to win, I needed them to help me do it. I couldn't do it all by myself. So I had to alter my skills, my presentation style to come down to their level so that I could be more productive and they could be more productive for me. And as they grew, I would bring them up at a pace that was comfortable for them. So that's the long-winded answer to your question, Jim. But the people in understanding the dynamics of how people learn and how people process their information and having a full understanding that people don't always think like you, but you do need these people as an entrepreneur to help you get to the promised land.
Okay, well, contrary to your assessment, that is not a long-winded answer because that is the beginning of a series of questions I want to follow up on because this really does get to the nub of being a successful broadcast station owner. So, DuJuan, talking about people, I want to get to the nuts and bolts of that. So let's get specifically. San Angelo TV station, Fox affiliate.
Yes.
Abilene, Fox affiliate. So you've bought 2 TV stations at this point.
Well, actually, it was 7 total because it included a smattering of low power stations where I cobbled together to create more full powers.
All right. So how many people are you employing at this point in San Angelo, Abilene? How does the employment break down total?
So I had about 45 employees total.
Okay.
In both San Angelo and Abilene. And
Okay.
San Angelo and Abilene were adjacent markets. So I could drive back and forth in 45 minutes to an hour and be in the same market.
Okay, excellent. All right. So you've come to San Angelo. You got 45 employees. So in San Angelo and Abilene, you got 45 employees who have been operating in a manner different from what you're accustomed to. So you had said early on that the stations that were available to a first-time buyer were going to be stations with problems. What were the problems you were aware of going in, and what was your plan for addressing them?
Very good question. So for me, again, entrepreneurs thinking is problems become opportunities. Okay? So they're really, you can call them problems, but they're really opportunities. The biggest opportunity that I had when I bought San Angelo and Abilene was that we were on the verge of a digital conversion. So not only did we have the recession going on, the country was about to convert from analog to digital, okay? My owner was committed to not investing a dime into anything to upgrade the television station. And frankly speaking, he had made it known he's willing to take on the government and he's not converting to digital, okay? But I took that as an opportunity because the transmitter that was running the television stations was a 1956 GE water-cooled transmitter that was costing the seller $35,000 per month in energy. He had a $35,000 a month energy bill to run 1956 water-cooled GE transmitters. I didn't go back and tell him, hey, when you convert to digital, your energy bill is going to go down to probably 10% of that number. So I took that as an opportunity to take advantage of a seller who didn't want to make any capital investments into the facility. And I knew that I was $30,000 to the good as soon as I converted from analog to digital. So that was the biggest opportunity or quote unquote problem, if you will, that I saw. The second thing that I saw, Jim, was keep in mind, my background was sales, okay? My strength was turning around Fox affiliates, independents, from a sales standpoint. I had done it all my career. No matter what market I had gone to, I was a beast in selling time and fixing problems as it related to sales organizations, okay? So I was fortunate that I wasn't following Sinatra. I wasn't following a great sales guy. In fact, I was following an engineer who was trying to be a sales guy. And if you know the psychology and the thinking of people, engineers aren't salespeople, okay? That's a different brain set, okay? So for me, I saw that as a mega opportunity to expand upon and do a much better job just selling what we had and not necessarily bringing in new business, if you will, to the TV station. I was just going to be stealing from the competition because I knew I was a much better seller than the previous owner and the previous general manager. So those, Jim, were the two main opportunities that I found in my due diligence that my investors and my financiers loved my acumen to discern those problems at the onset to get those investors to believe that I knew what I was doing.
Okay. Everything you say generates more questions. I'm loving peeling off the layers of this. All right. One short question on financing. So when you come in, you know you've got to do some investment in capital improvements. That was arranged with your financiers before you purchased the station, correct?
It was, but keep in mind that financing dried up. So
okay,
all that plan got thrown out the window.
Okay.
Because nobody was loaning money. But Jimmy, you bring up a good point because this leads me to a very, very important part of my transition that I believe most new entrants should know about. So keep in mind, I was talking about earlier where I had to take the seller out. The seller gave me financing, but he gave me a high interest rate, okay? So when I bought San Angelo and Abilene, I moved to the market. My family stayed in Houston, but I drove out to San Angelo every Monday morning while my family stayed in Houston, and I came back Thursday night. So I got entrenched into the community. I got to know the business leaders in the community. I joined the San Angelo Country Club because I played golf just to get to know these folks and let them know that I'm part of the community. One important relationship that I found and I developed, because all small towns are really what they say they are. They're small towns and they know everybody. I met the president of a bank. I met the president. His name was Mike Boyd from First Financial Bank. And Mike knew that I bought these television stations. He didn't know that I had seller financing. I invited Mike Boyd to my office. And I wanted him to see my operation. He had already seen what I was doing on the air because he was watching the television station. And he saw the changes that I was making. And he liked them. Okay, he comes to the television station and I asked him, I said, Mike, what is your average daily deposit for your small businesses? He says, DuJuan, my average daily deposit is $50,000. I gave him my Bank of America, a different bank statements, and it showed that my average daily deposit was well above his $50,000. I said, once he saw that, I said, Mike, will you loan me money to take the seller out? He says, you know what? With this average daily deposit, I think I can, but let me see what I can do. Mike was the president of the bank. He didn't do the deal. He turned me over to the senior loan officer. First Financial Bank, the senior loan officers came to me and said, look, DuJuan, we are not in the broadcast space. We do not do broadcasting loans. However, if you qualify, I can get you an SBA-backed loan. I can get you an SBA-backed loan. And I said, I'll take it. Anything you can do for me to get the seller out, I'm game. Make a long story short, I go through the interview process with the Small Business Association. Okay. They do credit checks, background checks. And I want to tell this story because this is poignant to my angel investor. At that time, my angel investor was still a partner with me. Okay? When we lost our financing and I found the SBA opportunity, we had to get fully vetted. Meaning, the government vets you from way back. Okay? They don't throw away records. Come to find out, my angel investor, who was 55, never repaid his student loans from the government. Mike Boyd, or my loan officer, calls me and says, hey, you got a problem. We got a problem. You qualify, you're clean, you're great, but your investor didn't pay back student loans, and there is a 7% interest on the outstanding debt. Mind you, this guy's in his 50s, okay? And either he's got to pay back the loans or he can't be part of the loan. So obviously I go crazy. I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I'm going to lose this loan based on my partner, okay? So I called my partner, and make a long story short, he had two options: either pay back his loan or leave my company, and I bought him out. So I ended up taking out my angel investor because of his past non-payment of government student loans, okay? And I ended up getting financed via an SBA-backed loan via First Financial Bank. So my adversity wheel, if you will, never stopped, okay? There was always a monkey wrench or a curveball thrown into my financing world. But what it taught me, Jim, was there are a lot of different ways to finance a broadcast property if there is enough willpower and if there's enough conversation to get to that end result and not look for an excuse, but to look for solutions because they're out there.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Now, let's go back because I've never been to Abilene. I've never been to San Angelo. Tell me about the racial makeup of those two towns.
So it was predominantly white. I mean, it was West Texas. Okay. The racial makeup was, and I didn't even look at it, Jimmy, from a racial makeup standpoint. I looked at it as I am buying television stations and I'm doing something that I've always dreamed of doing, and that wasn't even part of my consideration at all. So when you ask me what the makeup is, I couldn't tell you to this day because it didn't matter to me. I just knew that I was owning Fox affiliates in West Texas, and I was living a dream, okay? And I knew that based on my salesmanship and what I knew about living in life and my success as a salesperson, I could become a chameleon, okay? And I can weather storms like people wouldn't believe, okay? I didn't care what it was at the time. I just knew I was running television stations. So hate to not be able to answer your question, but I don't know what it was to this day.
Okay. Well, you answered the question perfectly by not knowing, because I think it's important for people to hear that part of your story too. I think there are a lot of ways of approaching becoming an owner, and oftentimes I'm approached by people who say, I want to own a station in a market where there are a lot of black people so that I can service black people. A noble objective. It's not one that necessarily leads to financial success. As business people, we have to begin with a game plan that we have for financial success. So what I hear you saying is, my game plan was about financial success, and I'll serve the community where I am, whoever they are, to the best of my ability. So you walk into San Angelo and Abilene, and you are, I'm going to guess, the most prominent black businessman in both cities the day you walk in.
Hands down.
Okay.
Hands down, Jimmy. Let me say one other thing too, Jimmy. You make a great point. What I want to tell folks, and this is taught ad nauseum in the Broadcast Leadership Training Program, your first deal is not your last deal. Okay? Your first deal is not your last deal. You may make concessions to get in the game on your first deal because you're getting in the game, okay? And you need to get in the game to build a reputation to get to your second and third deal, because I knew for a fact that I just didn't want to buy television stations in San Angelo and Abilene. I knew that I had to win there and be successful there before I could get to the next level and get other people to want to invest in me.
All right. So, as San Angelo and Abilene's most prominent black business person, you figure out the first. You're stepping in. You join the country club. You meet community leaders, and that's you described how you met the banker, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So back at the station, you've got these employees. I'm going to guess there are that your employees also racially look like the rest of San Angelo and Abilene. And so you got to connect with your employees as a black owner. How did that process go, and did you have any challenges there?
So I didn't have any challenges there, Jimmy, because everywhere that I had previously worked in television, I was usually one or two blacks in the sales department, okay? So or at the television station for that matter. So that was not new to me at all. I knew that I had been successful teaching, growing people of all colors, all races, all sexes all my life. So that wasn't important to me at the time, okay? And again, that was my first deal. So again, my mindset and my goal was, DuJuan, be grateful. You got your first deal. Win at this deal, okay? And you can dictate what you do next. That was my whole mindset.
Okay, so what did you do to win? What were the changes you made that caused your stations to become more successful?
So again, this goes back to due diligence. This goes back to buying television stations or radio stations that fit your strength. So I only changed, in theory, the GE transmitter that netted me $30,000 more a month in profitability, and the sales department on how to sell. Those were the mega two changes that I made to get my television stations on a trajectory going north so that I could win. I believe, a pretty decent leader, manager of people, okay? I subscribe to putting people in their strength zones, meaning letting them operate where they do best, okay? And where they're really, really strong at, okay? I don't believe in the weaknesses end of it. I believe in I don't believe in taking their weaknesses and trying to make them strong. I believe put them in taking their strengths and just letting them run with their strengths, then surrounding myself and those people with skills that are void from the other people's strengths and my strengths.
Okay. So, and that was the process that began the upward trajectory of the stations?
That was it, Jimmy. That was the emphasis. And I'll tell you this. Again, this goes back to due diligence. One of the things that this previous owner didn't do was invest in people, and he didn't invest in television stations. So I knew to win my people over, if I invested in the television stations and I invested in people, okay, I could rally those longtime employees around the new owner. The old owner didn't provide health insurance to these employees. So day one, when I do my takeover speech, okay, I say to the staff, I'm gonna get you insurance. Okay? This is years of not having insurance from the previous owner. Okay? I got a standing ovation. From that point on, I knew that was the first step in getting buy-in and getting support from my people or my employees on this new regime and this new trajectory that I wanted to get the stations on. The other thing, Jimmy, that I did in a very visible way, I'm a hands-on guy, okay? I told you before, I moved to San Angelo. I was in the mix. I was making sales calls daily. I was walking around the stations, improving the stations. I was meeting with clients. I was playing golf with clients on a regular basis, okay? So it wasn't like I wasn't there, if you will. I was hands-on, and I was a part of that culture, if you will, in San Angelo and Abilene. And I think that played an integral role in me gaining support and getting folks to come to work and do what I wanted them to do to get the stations going north.
Okay, now, am I correct? You also added some news that was lacking there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so after a couple years, okay, I wanted to tweak it again, if you will, okay? And I added a distant newscast from San Antonio into San Angelo, okay? And I just simulcasted San Antonio's news in San Angelo, and we were the only, it was Central Time, we were the only 9 o'clock news in Abilene and San Angelo, and lo and behold, it was the number 2 rated news in the market, the first book, okay? What I did differently was I piped in the news verbatim. We covered the commercials, but I covered the first 8 minutes of the San Antonio news, and I hired a news reporter to download, here's the news of the day in San Angelo and Abilene. So for the first 8 minutes, it was boom, 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 boom. Here's the first stories in San Angelo. Then we joined San Antonio Fox Affiliates News in progress, and the customers and the viewers loved it. Okay? That was a time when social media wasn't that big, okay, as what it is now. That was a time when the web wasn't that big. And that's hard to believe. This is 2007, 2008, 2009. The web in San Angelo and Abilene didn't push the needle. It didn't mean much. Okay? Social media didn't mean much then. So your ratings that you got were the telltale story on if people like your product or not. And the first rating book out, we did 3s, 4s, and 5s in demos, which is unheard of. Okay? So that was my tweaking, if you will, of the product and the programming on the television station to upgrade where we were from a community standpoint and a sales standpoint.
Okay, and that takes us to you eventually sell those stations. So, did you have the stations on the market, or did you receive an unsolicited offer to buy the stations?
So the stations were never, ever on the market. Again, timing was pretty good for me. A gentleman by the name of Terry London, who owned London Broadcasting, made it known that he's growing by buying Texas TV stations only. Okay? And I happen to have 2 Fox affiliates and some low powers. He reached out to me early on and said, hey, I want to buy you. He gave me a number. I said, nah, not interested in selling. Okay? A couple years went by, and he reached out again. And make a long story short, we did a deal.
Now, what year was that?
That was in 2012.
Okay.
That was in, I want to say, April of 2012 is when he reached out to me. We negotiated and ended up closing December 31st, 2012. And I didn't mention this earlier, but it's public. I ended up buying the stations for $3 million, and I ended up selling them to Terry for $18.6 million, but I held some seller financing. For Terry London, and it ended up being a $21 million transaction when it was all said and done.
Excellent. Okay, so you sell December 31, 2012. You called me at the time and told me I am taking a temporary departure from the business. I'll be back. So you came back with your next purchase. What year?
So I came back in 2015 is when I closed on the Evansville, Fox, and CBS stations. So it took me about 3 years, Jimmy, to find another, actually 2.5 years, to find other properties to purchase.
Okay, so during that 2.5 years, were you looking all the time, or did you kick back and relax for a while? Were you always looking for new deals?
So I again, Jimmy, when I sold San Angelo and Abilene, my profile went way up. Okay, my profile went up because what I accomplished in small market, what I accomplished during the recession, and what I accomplished in theory by myself, because I had a partner that flaked out, and I ended up doing this entire deal and running it by myself. At the time, Jimmy, mind you, I didn't even have a CFO, okay? I used the business manager at the television station that I purchased as my business manager, okay? And I didn't need a CFO. If they knew how to do my books, that's pretty much all I needed at that time. Okay? So my profile went up. Word got out that this brother's a bad dude. He's got some skills. And a guy by the name of Brian McNeil, okay? Guy by the name of Brian McNeil called me up and said, hey, DuJuan, hey, this is Brian McNeil, and I don't know if you know me, but I help Radio 1, and I'm friends with Alfred Liggins, and I'm on the board, and I heard some really good things about you for TV, and we invest in TV stations, and we're looking for an entrepreneur to help. And I gave him my pitch. I told him how I turned around San Angelo and Abilene. He said to me, this is great. Boy, you have skills. And he said, I want to take you to Bain Capital. I said,
Okay.
what?
All right. Tell people who Bain Capital is.
So Bain Capital is one of the largest private equity companies in the world. Okay. Most people know Bain Capital because it was started by, I believe, Mitt Romney, who ran for president. And it's just a large private equity company that's very difficult to crack or to get in, and they loan money from a private equity standpoint, from a mezzanine standpoint, from a senior debt standpoint, from a sub, you name it, they got all layers of money. And if you can get into Bain Capital, okay, you can pretty much write your ticket from a financing standpoint, okay? So, would you like me to finish telling the story, or you want to ask me another question?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
So, Brian McNeil helps me put together a presentation that would appeal to Bain Capital. I'll repeat that. He helped me put together a presentation that would appeal to Bain Capital. We fly into Bain Capital. I'm in the room. He's in the room. We got 8 other Bain Capital people eager to hear me pitch. Brian McNeil doesn't say a word. Brian McNeil just says, hey, as I told you, here's an entrepreneur that I think is great. He's done some wonderful things in San Angelo and Abilene, and he's had adversity, Here's his pitch. And he let me go. Soon as I finished pitching, Jamie Anthopoulos, who was the manager of the fund, said, let's go buy TV stations together. I said, huh? That easy? He says, yeah, all you got to do is go find some. Okay? So I put the word out to every television station owner in America, every broker in America, that DuJuan McCoy's got some new financing. And he's got some new financing, and he's being backed by, I called him the biggest and the baddest, okay, which was Bain Capital, okay? And once I got that word out, okay, people knew that I was real because they knew Bain Capital. And Bain Capital just doesn't support anybody, okay? And to verify that Bain was my money, okay, these few owners, and I put 10 hands up because there's not that many of us out there, they knew who to call at Bain Capital to verify if I was being funded by them. And the answer was a resounding yes. So they trusted what I said, the owners, but they verified my information by calling Bain Capital themselves, okay? So once I got that word out there, okay, any transaction that was being considered or being sold or television stations put on the market, I got a chance to participate in the auction. Why? Because my credibility from what I did in San Angelo and Abilene, and the fact that I have verified money now with Bain Capital, increased my profile, and people knew I wasn't wasting folks' time. So Perry Sook, the CEO of Nexstar, was doing a mega merger with a company called Comcore. And he had spinoffs in a few markets. Evansville, Indiana, he had a spinoff of a CBS station that didn't have a news because he had, obviously, a spinoff. You have Department of Justice concerns or FCC issues and whatnot, okay? I told Mr. Sook, I want to bid. I'd love to bid on those stations. He said, great, you can bid, but you got to pay me, okay? I told Mr. Sook, I said, Perry, all I want to do is win the tie. That's all I want to do is win the tie. That was the relationship that I had developed with Perry Sook on the board of the NAB. And when the bidding process got down to the last level, okay, I personally reached out to Perry and said, am I going to win the bid? He says, no, you're not going to win the bid. Here's the winning bid. I said, if I bid this, will I win the bid? He says, yes, you will. Okay? I bid what he needed for me to bid, and I won the bid for the CBS station in Evansville, Indiana, with Bain Capital backing me.
Okay. All right. And then next came Lafayette. How soon after that was Lafayette?
Oh, there was another purchase before Lafayette, though, Jimmy.
Oh.
So, keep in mind, the CBS station was the only station at the time for sale. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nexstar wanted to keep the CW, the ABC, and the Fox affiliate in Evansville. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The FCC, at the 11th hour, while the transaction was under review, the major transaction was under review, came back to Nexstar and says, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Sook. I'm sorry, Nexstar. You can't have three stations in this market. You have to sell the Fox affiliate. Okay? Perry said, oh my goodness, I got to sell the Fox affiliate. He called me and said, DuJuan, let's do a deal on the Fox affiliate in Evansville. This is a true story. We are at a board meeting, and Perry doesn't mind me telling this story publicly. We're at a board meeting in, I believe it's Arizona for the NAB. Perry sat on one side of the room. I sat on the other side of the room. And we go back and forth during the NAB board meeting, and we negotiate a price, and we do a deal for the Fox affiliate in Evansville, Indiana, in a matter of hours. I'm on the phone with Bain Capital during my breaks. Perry sending me notes. We're going back and forth. We're meeting, okay? We're just doing a deal, okay? And that was the beauty behind credibility, having respect, understanding a seller, and being nimble, okay, based on what your seller wants. It wasn't about me. It was about Nexstar and me doing a deal that was satisfactory to Nexstar. He wasn't going to do the deal with me, okay? So I had to adjust on the fly and do this deal with Perry to get the CBS station and the Fox affiliate in Evansville, Indiana, and we got that done. Now, fast forward to the next deal, I'm still looking, okay? I'm trying to grow this group because Bain Capital has really unlimited dollars and unlimited potential on how much money they'll give me for television stations, okay? It really depends on the deal, and that determines how big we get. So if I find a great deal and it fits my palate and fits Bain Capital's palate, we just continue to grow, okay? Fast forward 2 years later, there's another mega merger on the horizon, okay? It's Perry Sook again. It's Nexstar. And he's got spinoffs, okay? But I'm a little bit more bullish and a little bit more aggressive this time around because I, at the time, felt like I could be a major broadcaster. So every spinoff that Nexstar had in this Lynn Media General merger, okay, I wanted to bid on. It was a mega deal that was just shy of $1 billion. And Bain was supportive of it, okay? I put a bid in for the entire spinoff group. Nexstar came back and the broker came back and pretty much said, this ain't even close to what we're getting. Okay? I said, okay, no problem. I'm out. Okay? Come to find out, Perry Sook still had stations that he's trying to sell. I bid on another station, didn't get that one. That one was in not Chattanooga. I can't remember the market, but it was a distant market, and it fit my style of broadcasting and ownership. Didn't win that one, so I was out. Lafayette came up. It was the NBC affiliate and the Fox affiliate. I bid on those two in Lafayette, Louisiana, and won that bid and took over and start running those properties. And again, I bought those from Nexstar. Nexstar, and this is all public information. Perry Sook and Nexstar they have led the way in my mind in providing opportunity for diverse owners in broadcasting, in television. Nexstar is not necessarily in the radio space, but every transaction that Nexstar and Perry Sook did, okay, I believe Nexstar, particularly Perry Sook, made a conscious effort to incorporate a diverse owner into their mix. Okay, so I applaud what Perry Sook and Nexstar did by giving me an opportunity to purchase television stations in markets that fit what I was doing and fit my style of ownership.
Okay, well that brings us to Indianapolis, where you are currently an owner. So bring us up to date on Indianapolis.
So Indianapolis has been a dream come true for me. Indianapolis is where I started, okay, and that's my hometown. And for me to own a major news station, a legacy news station. When I say legacy news station, Wish TV signed on in 1954, okay? It was one of the first television stations to do news that signed on in America, and I own one, okay, in market number 25. So for me to come home and to be able to affect the community that I was born and raised I can't tell you what the feeling is like. I mean, it's unbelievable, the impact that I'm having on the community. So how I got Indianapolis, again, was part of a mega merger, okay? The mega merger, there's spinoffs, okay? And if I'm in the game and I'm letting people know that I want to buy television stations, and I'm letting them know where I'm from, okay? I believe generous, kind people like Nexstar, they think about that stuff when they're doing transactions, particularly when they're doing multi-billion-dollar transactions, okay? When I say multi-billion, I'm talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 billion transactions. And when you're doing transactions that big, okay, there is a responsibility by that transactor to do something for diversity, because we don't own anything, okay? And again, I'm giving praise to Perry Sook because, as far as I know, every time he's done a transaction, he's included a diverse owner. He called me up on a Saturday morning and said, look, DuJuan, I know you're not probably interested in TV stations right now. I know you're happy with Evansville and Lafayette, but I may have something for you, okay? I may have an opportunity for you in Indianapolis. I said, you kidding me, right? This is on a Saturday morning. The irony behind it, he calls me at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and I'm in the process of teaching the Broadcast Leadership Training Program. And my phone rings, and I pick up my phone, and I say, wait a minute. Group, this is Perry Sook calling me. I leave the room from teaching, and I take Perry's call. Perry says, what are you doing, DuJuan? I said, ironically, I'm teaching a broadcast leadership training program this weekend. He says, well, I got a station in Indianapolis that you know about because I know you're from there. How would you like to own in your hometown? I said, man, you don't know what that means to me if I can own in my hometown, okay? He tells me what I need to bid on the stations, and I said, when do you need to know? He said, tomorrow. This was Saturday. He said, tomorrow, Sunday. I immediately take a break from my broadcast leadership training program. I call my money at Bain Capital, who is out of the country, but he takes my call because I don't call on a Saturday morning unless I got something, okay? He takes my call. I tell him what we're about to embark on. I tell him what he needs to know. He gets together his team. I get together my team. We get the amount of new due diligence that we need to do overnight. We put together what we thought was a great offer for Mr. Sook on Indianapolis, okay, in Nexstar. And we give him our best offer the very next day, Sunday, okay? And when we gave him the offer, it wasn't what he wanted, but to make a long story short, he says, how much gas you got in the tank? I said, I'm on empty, okay? I have no more. This is what we got. He says, how quickly can you get the deal done? I said, as soon as we can get it papered up, meaning get under contract, and I can get the rest of my due diligence done. He says, okay, we got a deal. Okay? So there you have, in Cliff Notes, me purchasing Indianapolis. That was in September of 2019. That was in September of 2019 is when I closed on Indianapolis. Okay? Everybody knows what happened in March of 2020. Okay? I hadn't owned the television stations for 6 months, and the bottom falls out of America once again with COVID. Okay? So that was adversity that, knock on wood, that I got through. But that was the purchase of Indianapolis, Jimmy.
All right. Well, we have taken a lot of your time already. Everything you say always sparks more questions for me, but I'm going to bring this to an end so you can get back to making money. So here's what I want to do. If anybody who has listened to or watched this podcast, because it will be both video and audio available, what is the one thing you would like prospective station owners to have learned from this podcast?
If you can qualify and you have the time, take the Broadcast Leadership Training Program. It's a very invaluable program, and it will teach you things that you cannot learn by running a radio or television station. That's one. Two, do your first deal to get to your second deal. Do your first deal to get to your second deal, because you are not going to find your utopia in your first deal. And if you do, okay, you are very, very lucky. Okay? Those just don't come around. Okay? So find a deal, break your tooth on new ownership, okay? Learn from on-the-job ownership training, then take those properties, keep them, parlay them into your second and third properties. But don't do your first deal as if it's your last deal.
Okay, and one more subject matter we haven't addressed, but we need to talk about, because it's 2022 and everybody is in more than one media business. You're in over-the-air television, you're in digital, you're in mobile, you're in everything. Talk about what your company looks like now. I know you have created additional businesses to complement your television stations. Give us an overview of what your company looks like today as a player in the multimedia world.
Great question. So, Jimmy, when you own a television station in a large market, okay, like Indianapolis, okay, that gives me gravitas. That gives me eyeballs, okay? I have WishTV.com does 84 million page views a year, 20 million video views, and we have 16 million unique users a year. That's just Indianapolis, okay? So that allowed me to grow organically within my company based in Indianapolis. So from those type of metrics and that type of gravitas, I've created the All Indiana Podcast Network, where we have right now over 100,000 episodes of podcasts that originate from my All Indiana Podcast Studio in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've also heavily invested into a media data augmentation company called eMedia Augmentation. That is the next phase of where information is going. Data is king, okay? Google and Apple have been the kings of selling data, okay? I've been fortunate enough to hire and find a very brilliant data scientist that I've partnered with, and we know how to augment data. And my eMedia Augmentation company, again, is an organic growth from my Indianapolis platform. So I got 2 television stations. I have 8 multicast television stations. I got a podcast network, and I have eMedia Augmentation, a data company. And I also have a digital buying service where I can place digital ads all across the country for anybody or any company in the world. So there you have it.
Okay, that's a lot, and I know every time I talk to you, I'm sure the next time I talk to you, it will have grown some more. But I think you've covered it all. This has been great. I hope that we get wide distribution of this, and people who are looking to become entrepreneurs will see just what it takes and how you go about being successful. You are a great role model, and sharing the details of how it all came about is very important, and we are grateful for all you have done in helping to teach the next generation of entrepreneurs, and congratulations on all your continued success.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm glad to participate in your program.
Okay, thank you.